You're going off script too much, the producer said. I know you and Anna have a rhythm now, but this isn't a therapy session. We're burning budget. Keanu didn't flinch. We're making something real, and people will feel it. Not if the studio pulls the plug first, the man snapped. Then let them, Keanu replied softly. It was the first time he chose presence over perfection. That night, Anna found a note under her door. No signature, no envelope, just a folded napkin with 3 words. You see me. She smiled. But the next day, during a high-stakes media event, everything changed. A journalist asked Anna about the emotional tone of the film. She began to answer thoughtfully. Then another reporter interrupted. There are rumors this film is off the rails, that you and Keanu are improvising to cover up a weak script. Care to comment? Anna's eyes flinched. Keanu, seated beside her, placed a hand gently on the table. Then Anna turned, looked the reporter straight in the eye, and said, If truth is a weakness, maybe your story is the one off script. The room went silent, and Keanu knew in that moment she wasn't just acting anymore. She was leading. The morning after the press conference, the internet buzzed with clips of Anna's answer. Some praised her courage. Others questioned her tone. But one short video, a 7-second moment where Keanu placed his hand gently on the table beside her, without a word, quietly went viral. Not because it was dramatic, but because it felt human. No grand gesture, no defense. Just presence. And in a world full of noise, that kind of silence speaks loud. But not everyone liked it. Back on set, things were tense. The studio had sent notes, not about the performance, not about the script, but about tone. They used polite words like consistency and audience expectations, but everyone knew what they meant. Stop being real. Start performing again. Anna paced in her trailer, script in hand, rereading a rewritten scene. It felt empty, cold, like someone had taken everything raw and warm and filled it with cardboard lines. Keanu stepped in quietly, holding a small lunchbox. They rewrote the scene, Anna said without looking up. I know, Keanu said, sitting beside her. They want the old version. Anna closed the script. The one where she apologizes first. The one where she says she was too emotional. Yeah. She looked at him, tired. You gonna do it? Keanu opened the lunchbox and handed her half a sandwich. Only if you do. Anna took it, didn't smile, but her shoulders softened. You ever think we're just here to keep things pretty? Keanu shrugged. Maybe. But lately, you've been showing what real looks like. Anna leaned back. And they're trying to erase it. Then maybe, Keanu said, it's time we stop asking for permission. That day, they shot the apology scene. Cameras rolled, lights ready, crew quiet. Keanu delivered his line. Steady, scripted. You were right to walk away. Anna looked at him, then looked past him, at something deeper. And instead of replying with the scripted apology, she said, I didn't walk away. I waited. A pause. You could hear a pin drop. Keanu blinked. Anna stepped forward. But you weren't looking. Not at me. Not really. Keanu's throat tightened. It was meant to be a simple scene, a clean moment, a tidy bow, but truth doesn't wear bows. I see you now, he said quietly. Anna whispered, That's what scares me. Why? Because if you see me, she said, voice shaking, you'll leave. The director didn't say cut. The crew didn't move. The sound guy wiped his eyes. Keanu stepped forward. No. If I see you, I stay. And that scene, unscripted, unapproved, stayed in the final cut. because the editor cried too hard to delete it. Later that night, they found themselves in an empty soundstage, just the two of them, sitting on the floor. No cameras, no crew, just echo and dust. "Why do you think people leave?" Anna asked softly. Keanu paused. "Because they think they're not needed." Anna looked down. "I think people leave when they feel too seen, when the mask drops and they're not ready for someone to hold the real version of them." Keanu nodded. "Have you ever stayed for someone who didn't know how to stay for you?" Anna didn't answer, just looked away. He knew the answer. So did she. The next day, a letter arrived on set. Not from the studio, not from press. From a high school drama teacher in Indiana, handwritten, folded into a purple envelope, addressed to the production office. It said, "I showed your last scene to my students, not for acting, but for humanity. They cried. They didn't know why, but they felt it. Don't let the world polish you down. Keep showing the cracks. That's where the light lives." Anna held the letter in both hands like it was glass. "How did they even get this to us?" she asked. Keanu smiled. "People know when something matters. They find a way." The studio lights were too bright. Not in the way that hurt your eyes, but in the way that exposed things. Feelings, glances, shadows you thought were buried behind the lines of a script. And on that particular morning, nothing felt real to Keanu Reeves. Not the makeup, not the warm coffee in his hand, not the smile he practiced 3 times before walking onto set. Because across from him stood Ana de Armas, and something in her eyes was different. They had done this scene 5 times already, take after take. The crew joked about how easy it should be, just a simple reunion scene. No yelling, no crying, no punches, just a smile, a quiet line, and a gentle walk into the sunset. But the 6th take was not like the others. It began the same. The cameras rolled. The director gave the nod. Anna stepped into the frame, her hair gently curled by the wind machine. Keanu was supposed to smile, soft, steady, warm. And he did. But just as the wind quieted and she reached him, Anna leaned in closer than before. She looked right into his eyes and whispered one line that was not in the script. "You don't see me, do you?" Keanu's smile dropped. The set froze. No one said cut. No one laughed. The sound guy slowly removed his headphones. The assistant director stepped forward, unsure if they were witnessing a breakdown or brilliance. But Keanu didn't move. He just stood there, staring at Anna as if seeing her for the very first time. This wasn't part of the plan. It had started weeks ago. Anna had been quiet lately, more withdrawn. She still laughed during lunch breaks, still greeted everyone with kindness. But behind her charm, there was a heaviness. Keanu noticed it, but he didn't pry. He had always believed in giving people space, in trusting that if someone needed to talk, they would. And yet, maybe she had been waiting for someone to ask. The crew chalked it up to exhaustion, press tours, back-to-back filming. Maybe she just missed home. But Keanu remembered one moment. Just after a late shoot, they had walked out together. The moon was low. Anna had looked up and said softly, "Sometimes I feel like I'm shouting in a room full of people who only hear the echo." Keanu had nodded, unsure what she meant, and simply replied, "I'm listening." He thought it had been enough. Now he wasn't so sure. When the director finally called cut, the silence was thick. Keanu stepped back, slowly, still watching her. Anna didn't look away. She stayed in character, or maybe she had slipped out of it completely. No one could tell anymore. A few crew members whispered. Someone asked, "Was that real?" Keanu took a deep breath. "Can we take 5?" he asked. But 5 minutes wasn't enough. He found her in the makeup trailer, sitting alone, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes were fixed on the mirror, but she wasn't looking at herself. When Keanu knocked gently and stepped in, she didn't move. "What did you mean?" he asked quietly. Anna blinked. Her voice, when it came, was so soft it was barely a breath. "You see everyone, Keanu. Everyone but yourself. And sometimes, not me." That line hit harder than any scene they'd ever done together. Because he realized something in that moment. Kindness without presence can still feel like absence. And maybe, without meaning to, he had become a kind ghost in her life. They had known each other for years, shared stages, premieres, hotel lobbies, backstage jokes, late-night flights. But even in all that time, there were spaces between them that had never been crossed. Perhaps because both carried things they didn't want the world to see. Anna had her own journey, pressures, expectations, silent fears of fading. Keanu had his losses, grief tucked in the corners of his smile. They respected each other's space. But now, space felt like distance. "I didn't mean to hurt you," Keanu said, sitting beside her. "You didn't," Anna replied. "You just didn't see it." He looked down. "Then let me try now." Later that night, they ran the scene again. No cameras, just the two of them, in a quiet rehearsal space. No crew, no makeup. Just scripts in their hands and something raw in the air. Anna stood where she always stood. Keanu approached like always. But this time, before she could speak, he whispered first. "I'm here now." Anna didn't speak for a long time. Then she nodded, eyes glistening, and said the original line from the script. But something in the air had changed. The moment had life again. And when they filmed the next day, no one dared breathe too loudly. Because what they witnessed wasn't acting anymore. It was two people learning to show up, fully, for each other. And that scene became the most talked-about moment in the whole film. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And sometimes, one whispered line can undo everything you thought you knew. And sometimes, the most powerful scenes are the ones that feel like someone just told your own story without knowing your name. That night, the power went out across the studio lot. A fuse blew during post-production. The edit bays shut down. The screening rooms went dark. The only light came from emergency hallway strips and a few battery lamps. Cast and crew wandered outside, holding coffee cups and water bottles, unsure what to do next. Anna and Keanu sat on a bench under the awning. No phones, no lines to remember. Just the sound of rain and silence. Anna rested her head lightly against his shoulder. "You know," she whispered, "I used to be afraid of pauses. Like if I stopped talking, people would forget I existed." Keanu looked up at the dark sky. "I used to fill every silence. Thought that made me strong. Now I think, the real strength is sitting in the quiet and still being yourself." Anna smiled. A real one. The next morning, the studio issued a warning. One more off-script scene, and both Keanu and Anna would be replaced. But no one expected what happened next. Because instead of arguing, Keanu handed the producer a hard drive. "What's this?" she asked. "A scene we shot last night," he said. "There was no shoot scheduled." "We found a way." The producer narrowed her eyes, but she took the drive. 2 hours later in the projection room, the studio heads watched the footage. Anna and Keanu. One bench. No crew. No lights. Just a single handheld camera held by a friend. They talked, not as characters, but as people. About pain. About kindness. About the cost of pretending. The room was silent when the footage ended. "This isn't part of the film," one executive said coldly. No, Keanu replied. This is the film. That clip leaked online within 24 hours. But this time it wasn't scandal. It was revolution. People shared it everywhere, not because it was glossy, not because it was dramatic, but because it felt like the world had been waiting for someone, anyone, to say something real. And they did. Anna opened her messages that night. Thousands of unread notifications, but one stood out. A mother from Toronto had written, "My daughter watched your scene and asked, 'Mom, do people like that really exist?' I told her yes, and I pointed to you." Anna read it twice, then again, and she cried. Not because she was sad, but because for the first time in a long time, she felt seen, and she knew, deep in her chest, that the risk was worth it. Because sometimes the truth doesn't win in the script. It wins in the echo. 3 days of silence from the studio. No official statement, no press emails, just quiet. Thick, uncertain quiet. But outside the walls of Hollywood, something unexpected had started to grow. That unscripted scene, the one filmed in the dark with no lights, no direction, no makeup, had reached over 12 million views in under 48 hours. Actors from other films reposted it. Writers quoted it. Even quiet viewers who never commented on anything were sending private messages to both Keanu and Anna, thanking them for something they couldn't quite explain. This felt like someone remembered I exist. I didn't know scenes like this were allowed. I don't even know what I'm feeling, but I cried. And yet, in the middle of all that noise, Keanu and Anna stayed quiet. They didn't post. They didn't explain. They just kept showing up to set. On the 5th morning, the director met them in private. He looked tired, like someone who had stayed up fighting a battle without weapons. "They're not happy," he said. "We know," Anna replied softly. "They want something cleaner, safer, a version of the film that doesn't ask people to think too hard or feel too deep." Keanu leaned forward. "Do you want that?" The director looked at both of them and shook his head. "No. I want the version where 2 people stood still in a storm and didn't run." Anna smiled, eyes glistening. "Then let's shoot that version," Keanu said. They began shooting scenes no one approved, not with rebellion, but with intention. Small moments between takes. Silent glances held too long. Lines whispered instead of spoken. They didn't ask permission. They just lived inside the story, and slowly, even the crew joined them. Lighting technicians left shadows in scenes where the studio had asked for brightness. The sound team captured the inhale before a line and the breath after it. Costume designers gave Anna less polished dresses, more fabric with creases and warmth. Even the intern responsible for clapperboard timing stopped calling scene too early, just to catch the pause after the final word. They weren't just making a movie anymore. They were telling the truth. One evening after a particularly long day, Anna sat on the edge of the stage, barefoot, sweat on her neck, her eyes tired but alive. Keanu handed her a bottle of water and sat beside her. She leaned back on her arms and looked up at the ceiling. "You think people will understand what we're doing?" she asked. "I think the people who need it will. And the ones who don't? Maybe they'll feel something without knowing why." Anna turned to him. "You ever get scared that all this might disappear? Like one day we wake up and it's just gone. The praise, the attention, even the meaning." Keanu paused, then said, "The meaning never disappears. It just waits, sometimes for years, and then it finds the right moment, the right heart, and it echoes." Anna closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time she felt okay with the silence. But the silence didn't last. A leak, a boardroom recording. Someone had shared internal studio audio. A voice said plainly, "If we can't control them, we replace them." This film isn't a documentary, it's a product. The internet exploded. Fans called for boycotts. Actors tweeted support. And just like that, the truth had a microphone. Anna didn't panic. She didn't rage. She just called Keanu and said, "We don't have to fight back. We just have to keep going." And Keanu said, "I'm with you." The next morning, the set was still. Everyone waited. No one knew if the studio would shut it all down. But then, quietly, a man in a worn jacket stepped onto the soundstage. He looked around like he didn't belong. No badge, no assistant, just calm eyes and steady breath. Keanu approached him. "Can I help you?" The man extended his hand. "My name's Ramon. I'm Anna's father." Keanu blinked. "She didn't tell me you were coming." "She doesn't know," the man said. "But I needed to see it. This thing she's building." Anna came around the corner and froze when she saw him, then slowly walked forward. They didn't hug right away. They just looked at each other. Then Ramon spoke softly. "When you were a girl, you said you wanted to be someone who could break hearts and then hold them right after. I didn't know what you meant. I do now." Anna's lips trembled. Keanu stepped back quietly. That afternoon, with her father quietly watching from the shadows behind the camera, Anna filmed her most important scene, the one where her character breaks. Not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly, honestly. The scene started in silence, a mirror, a room with no one else. Anna sat in front of the mirror, holding her breath. Then, without direction, she whispered, "This is the part where I disappear." And from the other side of the camera, Keanu, who wasn't even meant to be in the scene, stepped into frame. He sat beside her and said, "Not this time." The room was silent. No one yelled, "Cut." They just let it happen, and the lens caught it all. That night, after everyone had gone, Anna and Keanu sat in the projection booth watching the raw cut. No music, no edits, just moments. Anna whispered, "You think they'll let this version survive?" Keanu leaned back, arms crossed. "Maybe not." "Then what was it all for?" Keanu turned to her and said the same line she once gave him. "Because I see you now." Anna looked away, but her smile told the rest. Because she had waited her whole life to be seen like that. And somehow, in the middle of all the noise, she was finally heard. The final day of filming came with no announcement, no wrap party, no streamers or cake, just a quiet call sheet, a shorter crew, and one last scene on a bare soundstage that smelled like dust and sleep. Anna arrived first. She wore no makeup, no costume, just herself. Keanu came in next, holding 2 small cups of tea. He handed her one without a word, and for a long moment they sat across from each other in the middle of the stage. Not actors, not stars, just 2 people who had shared something most never do: truth inside fiction. The studio hadn't approved the final script. They hadn't seen the edits. But Anna and Keanu had worked with the editor late into the nights. The quiet scenes, the whispers, the pauses that spoke more than dialogue ever could. They kept it all. Because the heart of the film wasn't in the plot. It was in the moments where the mask slipped and the audience saw themselves. The final scene they had to shoot was simple. No lines. Just Anna's character walking through a hallway. She was supposed to walk to the end, open the last door, and leave. But something happened on that take. As she walked, she looked up. And there stood Keanu's character. He wasn't meant to be there. It wasn't scripted. But he stood quietly. And when their eyes met, something unsaid passed between them. Anna stopped. Didn't speak. Neither did Keanu. And in the stillness, something shifted. The camera kept rolling. Anna whispered, "Are you going to walk with me?" Keanu stepped beside her. "If you'll let me." And they walked through the final door together. Not as lovers, not as actors, but as people who had dared to stay. Anna didn't speak much the next morning. Not out of coldness, not because anything was wrong, but because something had already changed. And when something changes deeply, language often falls behind. Keanu noticed it in the way she walked onto set. Calmer, slower, almost like she was carrying less weight. He noticed it in the way she looked at him, not with expectation, not with blame, just with quiet presence, like she was finally willing to let him see her without the mask. And maybe more important, willing to see him, too. The director gathered everyone for the morning notes, but the energy was different. The crew had watched yesterday's raw footage. No one knew how to label it. It didn't follow the shot list. It didn't match the storyboard. But it had something no one could explain, a depth that couldn't be rehearsed, and everyone felt it. "Let's keep what we captured yesterday," the director said. "But today, let's try something new. Let's not chase the perfect scene. Let's chase truth." Anna smiled. Keanu glanced at her, then looked down. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was full of meaning. On set, they moved into the next sequence. This one was different. A confrontation. Their characters were meant to argue, raise voices, question each other's loyalty. But even before the camera rolled, something in Keanu's gut felt heavy. He hadn't raised his voice in a scene like this in a while. Not like this. Not with Anna. It didn't feel like acting. It felt like walking across a fragile bridge they had just begun rebuilding. "You ready?" Anna asked gently, seeing the tension in his shoulders. Keanu nodded. "Are you?" "I don't know," she whispered, "but I'm here." And that was enough. The scene began. Keanu's character accused her of walking away when he needed her. Anna's character fired back with all the words she had never said. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was worse. It was quiet pain. And in the middle of it, when Keanu turned to leave, just like the script told him to, Anna added a single line. "If you walk now, don't expect to find me in the next scene." That wasn't in the script. The director didn't call cut. Keanu froze, back still facing her. And for a long time, he didn't turn around. The camera rolled. Anna's breath was shaking, but still, no one moved. Finally, Keanu turned back. His voice was low. "Why do you keep breaking the script?" Anna's voice cracked. "Because I lived this. And maybe, so did you." Keanu swallowed hard. It was supposed to be fiction, but they weren't pretending anymore. After the shoot, Keanu sat alone in his trailer, script untouched on the table, tea going cold beside him. He wasn't sad. He wasn't shaken. But he was thinking, deeply, about how easily people walk past each other, how often kindness becomes a performance, how pain hides in the most professional smiles. Anna knocked softly on the trailer door. This time he opened it without hesitation. She stood there, hair pulled back, no makeup, holding 2 paper cups of hot chocolate. "You always bring tea," she said, handing him one. "Thought I'd try something different." He smiled gently. "Thank you." They sat outside, side by side on the small steps, legs barely touching, silence wrapping around them like a quiet song. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you," Anna said after a while. "I just couldn't lie in the scene. Not anymore." "You didn't embarrass me," Keanu replied. "You woke something up." Anna looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" He stared into the trees beyond the lot. "I've been performing kindness, showing up, saying the right words, but maybe not always meaning them. Maybe..." I got too used to smiling through the quiet cries. Anna didn't answer. She didn't need to, because she knew that kind of silence too. The next few days, something shifted between them. Not in a romantic way, not in a dramatic way, but in the way people change when they're finally seen. When two people stop acting and start being. The scenes they filmed weren't perfect. Sometimes they missed lines. Sometimes they forgot marks. But no one cared, because what they gave on screen was something deeper: honesty, vulnerability, breath held between words, and the rest of the cast started noticing. During a group scene, a younger actor named Emma approached Anna after take. She looked nervous. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said softly. Anna smiled warmly. "Of course." "How do you do it? How do you make it feel so real?" Anna glanced at Keanu across the room, who was deep in quiet conversation with a grip technician. She turned back. "By not pretending it isn't," she whispered. Emma nodded slowly, like a student who just heard something her school never taught her. But not everyone was happy about the shift. A producer pulled Keanu aside one evening. But with attention came backlash. An article ran online. "Ana de Armas breaks down on set. Is it brilliance or burnout?" Another, "Keanu Reeves goes rogue. Insider says he's ignoring direction." The headlines twisted everything. Keanu called his agent. "Do you want me to release a statement?" the agent asked. "No," Keanu said. "Why not?" "Because the truth doesn't need noise. It needs echo." He hung up. Anna didn't read the articles, but she felt their weight. In the lunchroom. In the way some producers avoided her eye. In how the stylist tried to make her look softer during the next photo shoot. During a scene break, she pulled Keanu aside. "What if they cut us out?" she whispered. "They won't," he replied. "What if they replace us?" Keanu leaned closer. "They can't. Because what we're giving can't be replicated. Not by makeup. Not by direction. Not even by script." Anna blinked back tears. "I'm scared." Keanu looked right at her. "I am too. But we're not alone." Anna's breath caught in her chest. Because for the first time in weeks, maybe months, she believed him. That night, they went to a small cafe far from set. No cameras, no questions, just music and quiet. Anna brought a notebook. Keanu brought nothing. They sat near the window, sipping quietly. "Do you ever write?" Anna asked. "No," Keanu said. "Why not?" "I'm afraid it'll say things I've been ignoring." Anna turned to a fresh page and handed him the pen. "Then maybe it's time." He looked at the pen, then at her, then back down. Slowly, he wrote one sentence. "Truth is scarier than fiction because it can't be rewritten." Anna closed the notebook. "Not anymore," she whispered. And Keanu finally smiled again. Not the actor's smile, not the polite smile, a real one. The kind that says, "I see you, and I'm still here." The next morning it rained. Not the kind of gentle Hollywood rain they faked on set, but the real kind. The kind that soaked through jackets and blurred windows and made people quieter than usual. On the studio lot, umbrellas opened like nervous butterflies. Assistants rushed. Directors checked schedules. But for Keanu and Anna, the storm outside felt like a mirror to what had begun building inside. The previous day's footage had been reviewed, and the verdict was in. The studio wanted changes. Keanu walked into the producer's office just after 9 a.m., soaked from the shoulders down, holding no umbrella, only a calm look in his eyes. The head producer didn't even look up from her tablet. "Keanu," she said flatly, "close the door." He did. "We need you to talk to Anna," she said. "Why?" "Because she listens to you, and we need her to tone it down. This isn't a memoir. It's a movie. We sell stories, not feelings. Keanu said nothing. The producer went on. The improvising has to stop. We have a script. We paid for it. Stick to it. Still, he said nothing. Finally, she looked up. Do you understand? Keanu leaned forward, voice quiet but steady. You didn't pay for her. You paid for a role. But she brings something you'll never write. And if you try to bury it, you'll lose more than a performance. You'll lose the heart. The producer blinked, but Keanu had already stood and walked out. Anna was on stage 3, rehearsing alone, reading lines out loud to the empty space. Her voice cracked as she reached the middle of the monologue. She wasn't crying, but something in her eyes said she was close. Keanu entered quietly. He didn't speak. He just waited. When she saw him, she gave a small nod and looked down at the script in her hands. They want me to be gentler, she said, voice almost sarcastic. I know. They want me to smile more, say less. I know. And they want you to convince me to do it. Keanu raised an eyebrow. You already knew? Anna half smiled. They always send someone like you first. The kind face, the quiet voice. They think it'll soften the blow. Keanu sat on the floor beside the spotlight. I'm not here to soften anything. Anna turned toward him. Then why are you here? Keanu looked up at her. To ask if you want to keep telling the truth, even if it costs us. Anna didn't answer right away. Then slowly she folded the script and placed it on the floor. Yes, she whispered. The next scene they filmed was the breakup. Not in real life, not in their personal lives, but between their characters. The story arc demanded separation, misunderstanding, emotional fallout. But instead of screaming, they rewrote the scene through silence. Keanu sat on a bench. Anna stood behind him. No yelling, no tears, just breath. Keanu said, I waited. Anna replied, so did I. Keanu turned. Then why do we still feel miles apart? Anna stepped forward. Because waiting isn't the same as staying. The camera kept rolling. No music, no distractions, just truth. And when the director said cut, no one moved for a full minute, because they all felt it. When the film wrapped, they didn't celebrate. Not out loud, but something sacred hung in the air that day. The crew knew. So did the editor. And when Anna and Keanu stepped outside into the fading evening light, there were no cheers. Just hands over hearts, eyes quietly wet, because everyone had been changed. A few weeks later, the studio tested the final cut in a small theater. They didn't advertise it. They invited 30 strangers, students, nurses, truck drivers, a woman who ran a shelter, people who didn't work in film, people who knew life. The lights dimmed, and for 97 minutes, they watched something that didn't look like a movie. It looked like truth. When it ended, no one clapped. They just sat, silent, some with hands over their mouths, others with heads bowed. Then someone stood up, a young man in the back, and said, I didn't know anyone else felt like this. And that was all that needed to be said. The studio wanted edits, cuts. They suggested a new ending. They even offered money for reshoots. But Keanu declined. So did Anna. They offered a smaller release. Anna agreed, but only if it stayed untouched. They agreed, reluctantly. And so the film released quietly. No red carpets, no flashing lights, just truth, slipped gently into theaters like a note passed in a crowded room. What happened next, no one expected. Word spread. Not through ads, not through trailers, but through whispers. People who needed healing told other people who were hurting. Families who hadn't spoken in years went to see it together. Therapists recommended it to patients. Teachers played it for students. And over time, the film didn't become a blockbuster. It became something deeper. A mirror. A reminder. A soft hand on someone's back saying, "You're not alone." Anna watched it one night, weeks later, in a small theater in Madrid. She sat in the back, alone. The woman in front of her was crying, not loudly, just quietly wiping tears as the credits rolled. Anna didn't say anything, didn't need to, because she knew the story had reached her. Keanu watched it alone, too, in a small theater in Tokyo. No one recognized him. He didn't want to be seen. He just wanted to feel it the way the audience did. And when the final scene played, the hallway, the whisper, the quiet walk, he found himself crying too. Not because of the scene, but because of everything they had left unsaid, and everything that still lingered. Months later, Anna and Keanu met again. Not for a film, not for a show. They just met at a park bench between two cities. She brought tea this time. He brought a notebook. "Did you ever keep writing?" she asked. Keanu nodded. "A little." "About what?" He opened to the first page and handed it to her. She read, "The quietest moments stay the longest, because noise fades, but what's whispered lives forever." Anna closed the book and smiled, because she finally understood something. The story they told wasn't about characters, or even about them. It was about all of us, the broken parts, the healed parts, the things we carry, and the people who dare to stay when everyone else turns away.